good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening in somewhere.
Depends on where you are. It's good morning somewhere, good afternoon somewhere, and good evening somewhere.
Yes. Welcome back. Welcome back to Stop Self-Sabotage. I'm Ria Wang, and here with amazing co-host Wei Hong. Today we are diving into the topic that all of us sometimes may be doing it most specifically how to avoid is self-sabotage. Self-sabotage choice that keep us stuck in the cycle of frustration and how to get out of that. So how
Mhm.
to avoid self-sabotage choice is today's topic. Welcome, Wei. So this topic is kind of very interesting. Many
Yeah.
times we hear people talk about, oh, I don't have a choice. He's my sister, she's my sister, or he's my brother, or something, or he's some reason. So some people in our life is kind of little bit negative or unpleasant. How do we avoid with that? Not sabotage our own energy.
Right. Yeah, this is a very, very big topic. It's bigger than what it sounds like. Over the last 20, 30 years working with clients, most of my clients, we have to untether them from the types of choices that create self-sabotage patterns, right?
Mhm.
That lead to less than ideal results in our life, whether it be in relationships, money, career, or even our health, right? And I think one of the things is there's three areas. It's like, when we make a choice that we actually want to make, that tends to not lead to self-sabotage. When we make a choice because we feel we need to make that choice, right? And that need, I often like to call that obligatory, obligation, things we do because somebody or some culture or some society trained us to think that in order for us to be considered a decent human being or to be liked, right? The need to be liked, that we choose to make choices that we otherwise wouldn't make. Those are the choices that actually lead to eventual self-sabotage. It may seem, harmless at first, but little by little, it chips away at yourself. And then eventually you have a situation where you realize, like we always say, you don't know you're self-sabotaging until you already did it, right? So next thing you
Yes.
wake up, you're like, oh my God, I did it again.
Yeah, I think many people come will be said, we know everyone, every human here, we say you have a free will, right?
Hmm.
You can choose what to be. But
Hmm.
how about some people, they didn't know how to choose because how the way they growing up, how
Right.
they the environment around them, even like abuse the relationship,
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
constantly go back to choose the same pattern. So
Right.
how do you tell the people you have the free choose? You can choose leave her or leave him. So how that situation we can the people can learn some strengths or skills to shift.
Yeah. That's a good question, Ria, because, um, and this is something you and I do all the time, is we challenge the individual to redefine. We ask specific questions, right? It's like when someone says, I don't have freedom of choice, or they say, I do have freedom of choice, and I feel, I'm free to make this and I want to make this choice. But what does freedom mean? Right?
Mhm.
What does all of that mean? And when they say they like this and says, what specifically do you like about this choice? Right? It says, it's my choice, okay? And what was that choice? So, like I said, I think I mentioned it before. Virginia Satir was this psychologist who who developed a model called the Satir model, And the satir model was about drilling down to the specifics of what is meant by what is said. So when you make choices and you say, I don't have a choice, it's like, what do you mean? What specifically makes you feel like you don't have a choice, right? It's about asking yourself that question. You and I can ask the clients question all the time, and that's what we do. We get clarity. We help the clients get clarity. And really at the end of the day, some of the best coaches in the world are good because they are good at asking the right questions, right? And so when we want to do it for ourselves to avoid self-sabotage choices and everything like that, we also need to get good at asking ourselves the specific questions and to be willing to get clear on what we actually mean when we say what we say.
It's very interesting you talk about this. We have a choice. So I have a good friend before. He's when she's in the relationship with new dating, she always come to me, ask many questions, ask something, and she have this pattern. Always choose, when we say pattern, it's always choose some same pattern. When she started dating someone, just like a couple weeks, then the guy want to move in with her
Right.
because he don't have to pay the rent, don't have to pay anything. Then I
Right.
said, whoa, that is the good, it's really the big flag, right? Big red flag. Then she was like, oh no, he love me. We can see, I never meet anyone love like this. Then later on, the follow. So you cannot say, I told you so, right? But how can give very good suggestion to help her not choose something like that. And also, I know once when she was reaching out to me, I said, "Can we stop talk about your situation with the with your boyfriend? Because same thing, you ask me when I gave you some suggestion, but you never take it. Then you keep asking me same question again. How we can enjoy more without going to that pattern?"
Well, I think on a earlier call today, I think the first step is awareness. You know, I used to say this that, people like you and I, we can help anybody that wants to be helped.
Mm.
Put somebody in front of us that has a challenge, we could probably help them. But if they aren't aware that that pattern exists, that there's a problem that exists, so I
Mhm.
think going back to how to avoid self-sabotaging choices is taking ownership first and foremost that you did make a choice that eventually led to this self-sabotage, right? So if you're listening to this and you're realizing that you're noticing that you keep finding yourselves in bad relationships, or you keep finding yourself in bad jobs, or you keep finding yourself dealing with health issues, right? There is a master choice. I call this the master choice exercise. There is a master choice that you alone made somewhere in the timeline earlier before now that had a direct impact to that pattern that's starting, right? Because what a pattern is a story, and there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's a climax, and there's an end. Okay.
So here I wanted to ask you one thing. This, when we say pattern is the story, it's
Mhm.
also the pattern is like you said, the story what they believe. But do
Mhm.
you think a pattern sometimes also is the weakness?
Yes and no. It's only a weakness when we realize we're not happy with the end of the pattern. Because self-sabotage is tricky, right? We don't know that we self-sabotage until the pattern has run its pattern. We
Mm-hmm,
often
mm-hmm.
don't know we're self-sabotaging in the middle of the pattern. We only know when it's done with the pattern, right? And so what we want to do is learn well, first, do you recognize there's a pattern in your life? And if there is a pattern, then that's good. That's the big first step, that there's a pattern, right? And the next thing is to lay out all the patterns and find out what the whole story is. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's a climax, and there's an end. Usually, the only time we know we run the pattern is the end, because the end is the most intense. That's when we're like, we're not happy or something's happening or
Is I
whatever.
cannot handle anymore. I'm
Right.
break down. Oh,
That's
I
already
need
the end of the story. That's already
something
the end of the
different,
story.
right?
Right. And then when you get out of that pattern, a new story begins, but we don't know that the story has already begun. A new story has begun. And so one of the ways to do it is to look at your life like a movie or like a story, right? And you look at all the patterns and if I like to actually use a whiteboard or a big piece of paper and I write down all the similar patterns and then break it down to a story. Where did it begin? How did the story begin? What was the buildup? What was the climax? And then what was the end result, which is, I'm not happy. It sucks, you know. And then to end the story, you end the relationship, you end the job, or you cure the health situation that was just similar to a previous one.
Mm. I like
That's
what you just said. To under the pattern, you write down the stories to
yeah,
see what is the end, what is
yeah.
started. For me, I usually tell my clients. So because when they are in the pattern, many times they don't recognize it they are in the pattern until
Right.
you, like you said, it is the end. They say, "Oh, I cannot handle this anymore. I need to stop. Oh, I need to find a way how to do this, but I
Yeah.
don't know how yet." But that, like you just said, just raising the awareness, least you know you cannot handle anymore. You need to find the way. You start looking. When you
Yeah.
start looking, you start to aware to learn then how to raise your awareness. And I usually tell my clients, when you say, "Oh, I cannot handle this anymore. I need something different." When is the last time you speak same thing like this?
Hmm.
And how often you
Yeah.
speak like this?
Yeah.
Did you speak last month, last week, or last year, or last 10 years?
Right. And
So
this is where,
recognize
yeah.
how many times you speak.
Yeah. And oftentimes we're not paying attention. So pay attention to the deja vu feeling, right? Wait, I think I experienced this before. I think I said this before. Okay. The awareness of deja vu is the first step of like, okay, this is something that happened before. Where, how,
Mm.
so that's one way to do it. But like you're saying, hey, if you recognize the utterance, I call it the utterance, right? Utterances in my world, I define it as unconscious, just speaking out or sayings or comments that you make without really even think about it. Those actually carry the most clues to the patterns that are running underneath the utterances, the ones where you're not consciously thinking about and you just speak without thinking. That's
Mm.
your unconscious mind, the powerful part of your mind that is running patterns, that is in charge of emotions, in charge of your decision-making process. Those utterances are the ones that give you the biggest clues of patterns.
Yes.
Right?
And how to shift the pattern, the circle of that? I think also number one, since yeah, we said is raising awareness. Then second one, not just have awareness is never just enough. How do you find the way? Maybe shift your focus, doing something different, then to do a little bit more research. Then what
Hmm.
is learn from some expert. Like
Right.
a lot of time you cannot shift your pattern, you cannot get out your circle because you don't ask help. You
Right.
keep to figure out by yourself.
Yeah.
So ask to help because the way you're thinking is the same thinking, you are doing same pattern. When
Right.
some different help, that learning tool can help you the first thing to break that pattern,
Yeah.
least raising your awareness.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a really great suggestion because yeah, we get so good at running our pattern where we learn to block out any other pattern interrupt type of mechanisms, right? So that's why having someone who is good at recognizing patterns to be a sounding board to reflect back to you so that you can actually see where that is. And this goes back to the master choice. Once you are aware of the pattern, the next thing you want to do is look for how can you interrupt the pattern? Where are the pattern interrupt points? And this goes back to that conversation we had earlier today about master choice. Throughout your whole story, there's always an instance where it's just you, your only choice that nobody else can make except you, that was the pivot point. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you made a
When
different
we,
choice, that
but when we
pattern
talk
wouldn't run.
about just you, you make the choice. But when it's people in the pattern because they don't have that strength, they don't have that energy, or don't have that guts, or don't have that courage to make something different, then
Yeah,
how
you plan for it.
to upmight the energy and the courage?
Yeah. So what you that's why you do that exercise where you write down all the stories. So it's easier to go back to the history of what's already happened,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where that shoulda, woulda, could actually be helpful because you're practicing, right? Like, okay, if I encountered this again, this is the choice I would make. Now, in this story, if I encountered that again, this is the choice I would make. And you practice to get prepare for when it happens. See, it's through practice and recognition of their pattern where you can then start to train yourself to have the courage and the strength and the confidence that should it happen again, you recognize it and then you make a different choice. Now, don't get me wrong. The first time it happens, that choice might be really, really hard, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people say that if you want big change, you got to be willing to do something you've never done before. And and maybe you don't do it perfect. And this is the perfection piece. It does the first time you try to interrupt the pattern, it may not fully interrupt, but at least you tried.
Yeah,
And then you
the
run it again.
first time you integrate the pattern, the what is first things come out? The fear,
Yeah,
because that's different. The changing is so hard. The
right,
fear, then you become the bad belief. Like if you are in the bad relationship, when you want to change, you want to run away or want to shift, that fear coming, then the voice come to you and say, "Oh, because yeah, he's not good, but this he have another things." You try to argue with yourself, try
yeah,
to tuck your in back to the stuff, the place, right?
right,
So
right.
that is the pattern. How do you have a? I think that pattern is also the one shift is how to is like you said, write down, then ask a question. That our ask a question. Everything start ask a question. Then
Right.
ask a question. Also, one thing is I want to share is to imagine yourself. Also have the vision. Maybe you are not there yet, but imagine yourself how beautiful, how wonderful the place you want to be is
Mhm.
different than now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's called future pacing, right? So you put out into the future to create, we call it future pacing because you're setting a tone and a pathway for the future. And to do that, it's kind of like, it's also kind of way what we do reverse engineering, right? You
Mm-hmm.
set a future and you work backwards from the future, right? But if you do it from both ends, it's even faster, right? You make a choice here, but you also set a future, a vision that you want, and then you work backwards and you meet in the middle. So you could do it in half the time than if you do it one way or do it reverse engineer all the way to the front end. So anyway, it's a little bit more engineering geeky like, but
Yeah, we talk about the self-sabotaging is not say every day as you're working towards yourself, the self developer is really important to break
Mhm.
down the pattern. You
Yeah,
keep learning, then you keep
right.
to gather the tools, the skills to
Mhm.
break down the pattern.
Yeah.
You
And
cannot
like you
just
were saying, Ria, don't do it alone. Like I will never be without a teacher, coach, or mentor in my life ever again in my life. Why? I've had enough of scenarios where I didn't have anybody in my life, or I did have someone in my life, and the difference is huge. I I I don't want to waste any more time wandering in the darkness, trying to figure it out in a vacuum. I've committed to myself that I'm worth the investment, and I always will invest in making sure that I have a teacher or mentor or coach in my life on some level so that I don't have to be stuck in a pattern that doesn't serve me or the people that I'm here to serve any longer than it should, you know?
Yes, yes, that's what some of my clients ask me. He will be asking me, say, Ria, what is the difference I choose you to be my mentor than to ask my best friend or my sister or my mom? They all
Right.
love me. I know they love me. They support me. But what is the big difference?
They're not trained. They haven't made it their life mission to do this work, right?
Yes.
You and I, we eat, drink, live, breathe this as much as we can. I mean, everywhere I go, that's all I really talk about. That's my life. It's my purpose. It's why I'm here. And so it makes it a lot easier for me to continue to deepen my skill set, to further my understanding of what it takes to help another human being. And that's the difference. Our friends love us, yes. Our parents love us, yes. But they do other things. They don't think
You
about
know,
us
you
24/7, right?
have you ever heard about never just take your family's opinion because they they give you so many different opinions. Yes, they love you, they support you, but they, like you said, they're not trained. They are
Yeah.
not organized. They didn't give you the tool how to get that. They probably give you some emotion support that if you want to cry or you feel the safe in that place. But
Or
when you
just,
with us, with the
yeah.
professionals, because we go through what you go through before. So
Mhm.
we come out with that side. We implement a lot of skills, learning
Mhm.
that inside, then to know which is work, which is not
Yeah.
working. So that
Yeah.
we share the tool to help you to get out
Right.
the pattern you've
Yeah.
been there.
I think the big difference is this, Rhea, is that when we learn the tools, we learn to understand that just because it works for us doesn't mean it works for other persons. So that's why we learn a lot of other tools. When our friends and family help us and they give us, and even if they give us suggestions, they're only giving us suggestions based on their own lens, what may have worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe something that they read somewhere is like, oh, I read that this worked, but they may not have experienced it actually being applied and them observing whether or not it actually works. So most of the time it's either theory or it's a tool that only worked for them. So they're assuming that it's going to work for you, which is usually not the case,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
right?
Definitely, definitely. I wanted to say when you tell the family, sometimes you say, I don't have a choice. Family people will be always say, yeah, you do have a choice. You can choose different. But if you come to professionals, if you say, I don't have a choice, maybe then we will be tell you. So you maybe can shift your language. Then shift your language. Next time you tell people, say, I don't have a choice. Then you shift to I'm choose this because. So
Hmm.
that is the tool help you how to use different language than
Right.
instead of repeat the same pattern.
No, that's a great tool because I'm t making taking ownership of whatever choice you make, good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. If you start taking ownership of every choice and explaining to yourself why you made that choice, it's going to reveal clues to your pattern every
Yes.
single time. Yeah.
And then, as we say, choose the language. Then every day you can do some daily boosting your energy, boost your confidence. Then every day you tell yourself, today I choose alignment. I choose with a grow with my self-trust. I
Hmm.
choose myself. So
Hmm.
as you repeat that more and more, we talk about so much energy that really raising your energy, give
Hmm.
you so much confidence.
Yeah.
That is can help you then stop the same pattern, go back to
Right.
there.
Yeah, you're empowering yourself to getting used to making choices for you that you want to make, right?
Hmm.
So really, really good stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of good gemstones in what we talked about today for sure, Ria.
Yes.
This will probably help a lot of people. I mean, if this is something that you find yourself doing, waking up, it's like I self-sabotage myself again. Well, it all comes down to choices that were made. So hopefully you were able to get a lot out of this today.
Thank you, everyone. I think this is our time again. So
Uh-huh.
every Thursday, so we and Ria here, we will be give some tips inside how to stop self-sabotaging. Like today's, we can say how to stop sabotaging to avoid your choice. You have the choice. That's what we always like to
Always
say.
have a choice.
You
Yeah.
have the choice. And then
Yep.
also next time when you say you don't have a choice, you start to say, today I choose this because. And
Mhm.
also you can start to say, what is this teaching me? So you
Hmm.
have many choice.
Many
Then
choices.
keep grow, keep trusting yourself, keep grow.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
All
you,
right.
Wayne. Yes.